Um, Good evening, everyone. And we are doing our last virtual seminar, Chiron virtual seminar of this year. And this last year, we are going with um, a workshop in two parts. So first, I'm going to show a few images from medieval miniatures and showing the Nativity and especially the flight to Egypt. And then we will go to the practical part and draw a card or just something to decorate your table. And second, I'll share my PowerPoint. Um, go. Um, that's the last slide. We want to go to the very beginning. Okay, so here we go. Right. So last year I was between animals which were present at the Nativity and the Divine Baby. And we saw that donkeys and oxen are very prominent at the Nativity scene. And this time I want to look at the way the Virgin is depicted riding. So I think this image is wonderful. It's a little bit graphic. I'm sorry about this. I hope it's not too disturbing, but as we all know, people in the Middle Ages were viewing the Nativity in a little bit different way at Christmas. It wasn't so much of a big celebration as it was like more of a religious festival. So not all sweet and fluffy and presents and everything. We have the dark part, some children which are killed by Herod's soldiers, and of course the Holy Family fleeing away. This image is quite interesting in that it shows also very close relation between the Virgin and Christ, and it's kind of you feel a little bit worried what's happening. They're fleeing from danger, showing the world in a sort of crisis. Um, it's quite interesting in several details, this image, not just this loving scene in the center, moving from the bad part to sort of better life in Egypt. Um, it's also interesting in the way the donkeys, the equipment is shown. So here we have a sort of um, this tail piece going around the tail. I'm not sure how it's connecting to the saddle, but I'm quite sure it's there to hold the saddle in place. See a kind of large saddle. The Virgin is seated sideways. We have a girth which is very visible. You can see clearly that it's made from woven cloth or cords, very similar to the one which Timothy Dawson made for my pony and which I love. The other thing we see that the donkey here is wearing a bridle and has a bit. Doesn't look like, might be a curb bit, I'm not quite sure, but it seems to be quite a strong bit because the donkey has its mouth open. Doesn't look very pleased with it, right? We see an expression which today is associated with discomfort in horses, but people viewed it a bit differently maybe back then. Mm. But the way the bridle is constructed is interesting as well because it goes around the ears of the donkey. You have a second donkey as well, which is being led in hand. Probably it's a pack donkey. And we don't know if the saddle on which the Virgin is riding is a pack saddle or not. We don't have this level of detail. But if we look, when we look at other illuminations, it's quite likely that this will be a pack saddle. Um, and now we are going to look at some other images. So first of all, I'm showing this one, and this is definitely not the Virgin. Um, it's from it's an illumination going with a copy of Laurent Piemerfer's translation of Boccaccio de Viris Illustribus et de Muleris Claris, de Muleribus Claris. So this is legendary Pope Joan, a woman which became a Catholic Pope, allegedly, and which was found out when she gave birth to a child. That's the event we see here. So this is kind of anti-virgin scene because we have a woman where a woman isn't supposed to be, and she's not a virgin, as we can see, despite the fact she was in religious orders. She became a pope. She did the thing which she wasn't supposed to do. So that's kind of antithesis to the virgin. Why I included this very interesting illumination here is that she's clearly riding a sideways saddle and she's in a position similar to the Virgin, basically. But this is not a meek donkey, it's a horse, and it's an elite horse. We can see a curb it. We can see that the horse is built the way very expensive horses are, so thick neck, small head, small ears. It's had a position which is associated with collection, or at least with flexion. We see that what appears to be double reins, maybe, um, breast strap holding the saddle. So this is a very elite animal and a very elite rider. Yeah, in the circumstances which are the antithesis of the Nativity. And this guy is definitely nothing like Joseph. So, looking at the Nativity itself, we can definitely see lots of animals. So, oxen, donkeys, sheep, and horses. And this image, I love it. I used it last year as well because it shows realism at the same time as it has metaphorical elements. Just wait a second, got the chat. Right. So the realistic part, obviously, the Savior was born in a very poor situation, didn't have an opportunity to stay at a hotel. He was born in sort of grotto, cave, or animal shelters. We see a decaying animal shelter. We see holes in the straw roof. We see a structure which is built exactly the way you build animal shelters, and you will see time and again in other images of the Nativity. All these beams, cross beams. We see this very realistic detail, the hay rack, which is set high, and that's the way horses were fed in the Middle Ages. You can see it in other illuminations as well. You have these two animals which are tied up in tied up stall because loose boxes weren't very popular back then. But the thing which is not realistic, rather metaphorical, we see this very lavish bed with a red cover. And you are wondering what is it doing in this animal shelter? Obviously, the three kings um, are here, and they're bringing this luxury gift. They came on the back of luxury horses, attended by grooms. This wonderful, magnificent saddles, the crupper, the bridle with ornaments. But we are reminded that the real king is here, and the real queen is here because they have these magnificent bed associated with the nobility and royalty. And we see this marriage between realism and metaphor also in other miniatures. So, okay, so that's a much earlier miniature from another medieval manuscript, and it's showing a very different scene, kind of a quite private scene. We have two animals, the ox and the donkey, sort of. The ox seems to be chewing the baby's clothes. The donkey is like, oh, what are you doing? And you can also see that both animals, they have sort of halters or maybe even bridles on their heads. So there's this curtain. kind of opening the scene for us. It reminds us of the altar part of the church, to kind of limit the space for the animals from the space for the humans in the situation. Still, the animals are there. And the realistic part, Mary, who is kind of tired from the travel, and Joseph, who is also tired, they are half asleep. Um, it all happens. The baby seems to be asleep too, and the animals are just wondering, who is this little intruder in our manger? But you can notice that this is anything but a manger. It reminds you of the altar structure, um, definitely, because it also reminds you of the way churches are built. You have these high arches. So you have all this metaphorical context going on. And this is quite appropriately Jacob van Marland's Spiegel Historial. Um, okay, so historiated mirror. Um, and jumping on to the last decade of the 14th century, this is um, Gradual, a book which included religious songs and notation and text, and illumination, obviously. It's a work of art in itself. The Gradual of Fra Silvestro dei Gherarducci. You have the song sung at the liturgy on Christmas Day, Puer natus es nobis, and you have this thing. So that's on the right, it's the entire page, the way it's set. On the left is a close-up of the image. What I like about it is that it's so detailed, it's so realistic. The baby is behaving like a baby. It's nursing, Mary is nursing him, and Joseph is adoring the baby, kissing its foot. Babies are adorable. People who know me know that I have got four of them, and the youngest is almost 1 year old. So you cannot imagine a scene which is more natural. At the same time, it's full of metaphorical meanings because you are what you see is the divine baby, Mary in her role as the mother of not just of God but of all Christians and protectress of us Christians. And Joseph is doing what we all should do. He set in the example, you should adore Christ. And what I love here mostly is these two great animals, the ox and the donkey. And you see that here you have halters, not bridles. The donkey is wearing something which is very much like a rope halter, something you can do yourself. And the ox is wearing a different kind of halter. It's a rope tied around the horns, and it's still used this kind of way of tying cows, oxen. It could be used as an alternative to a halter. I have seen it in the countryside. So again, it's something very practical. But the way it's set, you have the animal space in the grotto, you have the manger, and you have Mary and Joseph at the front. It's a model which is reproduced, but details are added by the illuminators. And another book of hours from the Netherlands, 15th century. It's interesting in that, like, kind of, you want to shout out health and safety. Why are you putting baby in this precarious position next to animals' hooves? Which is, of course, a little bit less realistic. You also can see that this structure is built according to the way shelters were built, obviously, but it's not as detailed as the one in the Hlengatok Towers. The roof is probably made of straw. You have this little light window for air. You have this cross ground. Of course, the way the baby is placed, you don't place a real baby like this next to the hoofs of the animals, but just stressing the proximity between the Savior, the people, but also the fact that Christ came here to save all the world, not just humans, also animals. I like the way the donkey is wearing again a rope halter. Seems to be made from the same rope as on Joseph's belt. Um, And you can also see that Joseph here doesn't have a halo. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. Or Joseph kind of a little bit pushed away together with the other animals. And now my favorite image of this paper is this pair of images from the Bodmer manuscript. It shows flight to Egypt, and on the same folio you have two images which are similar, and yet they're different. So first of all, well, Joseph has time to change his clothes, obviously. Mary doesn't, but Christ's clothes are changed, kind of. But the thing which impresses me most is that it's obviously the same donkey, but the way it carries itself is different. Here you have everything you think of when you think about donkey. It's carrying its head low. It's kind of this lowly animal, maybe not entirely super cool animal. But here the donkey is carrying its head high, almost like Destrier. Um, its entire position is similar to that of a horse. Just we know it's donkey because it's got ears, which are very long. In both cases, it doesn't have a bridle. It has a rope halter. It's led by Joseph. And the Virgin is seated sideways on this animal, just making sure the baby doesn't fall, holding it very gently. And we can speak about the symbolism of the animal moving from left to right or from right to left, and of the Virgin holding Jesus on her left shoulder or her right shoulder, but I'm kind of not going to go into this metaphorical context. First of all, because you need to be an art historian focusing on this to discuss it better. I think there are people who can discuss these details better than I. I'm just noting that the symbolism is present. And very similar image from the Deimos hours. So mid 14th century, first half of the 14th century. Again, we have Joseph who's carrying the staff and leading the donkey. But this donkey is very different. It's like very low quality animal. You don't really want this donkey on your yard, okay? It also looks like the Illuminated didn't really know how to draw donkeys because for me the head looks like that of a bunny rabbit, I'm sorry, or a hare. But the idea that you have a rope halter made of hemp or some very basic material, that this is a low status animal, it's carrying these two very important people, Mary and Christ. It's kind of this play between the low status animal and its precious riders. And again, you note that Mary and Christ, they're kind of one unity. They both have halos. They're wrapped as a single unit, mother and child. And Joseph is a guy from a different story, doesn't have a halo. He's looking at them. And as quite often, he's placed a little bit outside of this, not quite part of this family. You feel sorry for him here, at least. And again, another book of hours, that's a later one. And I showed it last year. It's a good example of a donkey which has equipment that wouldn't pertain to a donkey. It's a curb bit. The bridle isn't very elaborate, although it seems to have some decorative elements, or maybe this is a knot, but definitely it's got a curb bit, and curb bits weren't used on low status animals or low status tag because they're quite hard to make. Needs some precision. What I didn't notice last time is that I think the Virgin here is riding astride. Doesn't appear that she's seated sideways. We don't see on what she's seated, but yeah, it seems to be seated astride. And I think that the donkey seems to be ambling. It's still a donkey, recognizably donkey, doesn't have a high head carriage associated with horses, got a big bum. But it's ambling. I have to confess, I don't know much about donkeys, whether they amble or not, but I suspect most illuminators' knowledge of donkeys was a bit like mine, unless they were from Southern Europe, where donkeys are more common or were more common in the Middle Ages. They weren't that common in Northern or Central or Western Europe. Don't think so. Um, and it's been often noted, it's not my new idea, but quite often curb bits are shown on animals which obviously weren't wearing curb bits. Like the lateral salter has a scene where work horses are drawing a cart uphill, and they are low status working animals. They shouldn't have curb bits, but they do. So basically, the illuminator is reproducing the tech which they usually reproduce, and they didn't always care about precision. And another image from another book of ours, also in the Morgan Library. I just love this source. It shows again donkey with high status tech. It's got crupper, it's got all these buckles, got the virgin seated sideways this time. It's unmistakable. But the donkey is still a donkey. It's behaving in a very asinine way. It's just eating grass. Come on, I just want to eat. So all this discourse about donkeys, about the way they behave, it's all there. By the way, if you're interested in medieval donkeys, there is this wonderful book introducing the medieval as by the Wales University Press from the series on introducing different medieval beasts. It's this book doesn't really discuss the nativity images. I wish it did, but it discusses all these different literary stereotypes about medieval donkeys. It has more information on literature and art than on real medieval animals. At least it was richer in this part for me, but kind of interesting book to read. And this is the marginalia for the previous page. What it shows, there are these two little roundels, kind of vignettes from helping Mary to get through these tracks around, showing her the way, always very caring. And what you can see here the donkey is wearing the crupper. Here as well, it seems to be like quite ornamented bridle, but here it looks like this is a different animal. The Holy Family is at rest. Christ is playing, doing something, just the way kids do. The donkey is eating. That's the usual donkey attitude. But you can see that the tech is very different. It's definitely looks to me like a pack saddle. And it's not a curb bit. It seems to me like more like a simple bit or a rope halter. Well, the most explicit feature doesn't have a crupper. So not the same donkey. Where did they have the time to change donkeys? I don't know. And again, this is similar. What I like about it is the way Joseph is leaping and the donkey is also synchronizing with Joseph with its round leg. And the other thing is like they're almost dancing here. And Joseph has his hand like lovingly on the donkey's cheek. Again, they kind of good buddies with the donkey, and Mary and Christ, they're a separate group again. Yeah, so that's it. That's what I wanted to comment on. And uh, this is a different style, obviously. And here you have this crupper and the breast strap. And you can see the saddle structure. I'm not quite sure, but to me, I still would think it's a pack saddle because it's not decorated. It's not a sideways saddle and doesn't have any indication that there is a backrest. Yeah, Joseph is depicted in a different way. The faces are different. The baby seems to be very happy. So this is late 15th century, so it's kind of different style of illumination. I think I've noticed when I was looking at it, there is some land management going on here. They have cut some trees. Um, And looking at the donkey stack, you can see that here it's a bridle. It's definitely not a halter because you have the reins, but it's either a snaffle or theoretically it might be like a bitless bridle, but I think the reins are going to the animal's mouth, so it's most probably the idea is to represent a snaffle. And this is a realistic element because snaffles were used for low status animals. That's something we know for sure. And that's why another reason to think this is a pack saddle, right? Interesting thing is that nobody is holding the reins. Like the Virgin is occupied with the baby. Joseph is like gazing at them and it's like, oh, saying something and smiling. He's not like concerned with taking the reins, and the donkey is just following. But that's probably the way donkeys are. You know, the idea of join up when a horse follows you without you holding the lead rope on the reins. Apparently, donkeys are even easier to teach to follow. They don't even need teaching, especially. They would just follow, right? Um, at least that's what I have read somewhere. I think Timothy, in his article on pack saddles, he was noting this fact and alluding to some images where you can see a pack donkey just following another animal, just very meekly. Again, I don't know much about donkey behavior, but it's quite possible they would follow you. And I wanted to show this image because it's quite rare to show the virgin or the rider sitting sideways from the other side, from the off side. Usually we have them on the near side. Okay, you can see that there is some sort of saddlecloth which is covering the girths. You don't see the girths. Joseph is holding the reins, if this is the reins or the lead rope, but it seems to be the reins, actually. Idols, the false idols are falling, pagan idols. That's a big donkey, the other thing I would note. So donkeys come in different sizes, and you could see from the images some of them are kind of very small donkeys, but here again, the Bedford Hours are a late manuscript, and by that time, horses would usually be drawn taller, and they seem to have grown in stature. And this animal, you can see from the confirmation that it doesn't look like your typical donkey except for the ears. Again, it's the way it's walking. Um, Even the neck, it appears to be that of a horse. So it's quite possible the Illuminator was just concentrating on the head to make sure, yes, that's a donkey, that's not a horse, but the entire body seems to me to be that of a horse. And the color, of course, is typical color of donkeys. It's gray. Um, uh, and I just wanted to add this image because it's clearly not a donkey. It could be anything. It could be some kind of fantastic beast and how to draw it, but it's not a donkey. I don't know what to call it. Got its neck in collection. Seems to be snorting, seems to be quite angry at something. I'm not sure at what. Joseph is like, I don't know what this animal is doing. Nothing I can do to help you, darling. She's like, yeah, it's going somewhere. Um, this is a fantastic beast. I don't really know what to say about it, except for the fact that it's clearly having a rope halter, and the lead rope is on its neck, or it could be a bitless bridle. I love bitless bridles, so I would love to find evidence of it, or of riding in a bitless bridle. But also, it doesn't seem that the version has anything to do with like managing this animal. It's just going somewhere. She's not holding the rein or the lead rope at all, and neither does Joseph. Hopefully, they're getting somewhere. So thank you for your attention. And if anyone knows what this manuscript of fresco is, please comment on it because I found this image years ago and I can no longer remember where. I would love to find out. And that's the only one where I can see Christ actively interacting with these two animals. I tried Google Lens and it didn't help me. with this search. So, pause the recording. Let's see what's in the chat. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the images.
They were super. I dropped out at one point and lost a few minutes. The connection just disappeared. It does this from
Okay.
time to time, so I missed a few, but I'll catch up when I
Yes.
watch the recording. Yeah.
Okay, what I'm going to do now, I'll switch to a different camera. So it would be oh, show grid video. Okay. So the image we are going to draw today will be this one. No, oh no, not this one. The one with where the donkey is holding its head high. First of all, I like the donkey more. It's more like and it looks almost like a destrier, I would say. But here we go. Yeah. So I leave the slides on my screen, but if you want to follow the way I'm copying the manuscript, I think you can put the video as like on the top of your screen, I guess. How do I do this show meeting? Okay, your screen sharing is paused. How do I do screen sharing again? Oh, Francis, I'm very glad you're in the warm Peru. Our weather is nothing like it's not winter, and it's not it's not anything you want to see. It's like English winter, right? We usually have some snow, but not this year. Sorry. Okay. So I'm leaving this slide on the screen, but I'm also going to offer you to do some drawing if you can, if you want to. So before this, I sent this picture to the group. So if people want it and print it out. The way I usually do it, I just color the back part. We can do it together. And then I do the outline, and I also share the outline if people just wanted to print it out and use it. And okay. I'm wondering if I'm recording. Yeah, no, I am recording. All right. So what we are going to do is do some drawing. If you want to discuss something about these images, or you want something about donkeys, which I don't, or about pack saddles, we can also discuss. I can be drawing and discussing, I guess. So if you haven't been to my last year's workshop, what I do is I will just cover the back of my printed image with pencil, and then I do something like copying. When I grew up, there was a thing called copying paper, which you put underneath your image, which you want to copy, and then you trace over it. And I don't know if you can still buy it, but a friend who is an artist and an art historian, she showed me this way of drawing for dummies. If you feel you don't know how to draw, you can do it this way. And because I don't always feel like I can copy these astonishing medieval miniatures, that's what I do. Basically, if you use ordinary gray pencil. You can also use black pencil. Haven't tried with other colors, but it should be visible enough, and it should be um, yeah, it should copy onto the other piece of paper. So you need to color the back side quite thickly, so it would rub off onto the next piece of paper. So also copied this one, but I think this has got so much detail. I'm not quite sure if I can do it. At least not quickly. Maybe another day. So next thing I'm using my piece of paper, putting the drawing over there. And then you either can have a pen which is dry, or I use a knitting needle, and you just copy the outline, or as much of it as you want. So if you feel very confident, you can just copy the main details. I think it's still helpful because for me it helps to save the proportions. I think you need to make sure that it's not moving. Otherwise, you will end up with something which you didn't want to have. Yeah, so I'm copying this donkey. What I found, well, copying different miniatures and doing calligraphy and illumination is that it helps me to concentrate on the detail in these illuminations, and also it's great meditation thing if you want to kind of just shut your mind to whatever is happening in the real world. But it also helped me to see details which I don't really see, I don't appreciate that much. Obviously, all these miniatures, they're so small. Many of them are much smaller than the way I draw them, and still wondering how on earth people could do that. I just recently watched a cartoon, The Book of Kells, which is about the way the Book of Kells was, The Secret of Kells, sorry, was the cartoon, which is about the Book of Kells and how it could have been drawn, and still amazed. You need to be very talented, obviously, and have a lot of time on your hands. Now, I feel more like the virgin with the baby in her hands. Busy mom who doesn't have much time and needs to travel. I'm also wondering, in all these images, you see the Virgin sitting sideways, and she's like taking a lot of space on this poor donkey, and I'm just wondering about the way the donkey is feeling. She might be quite heavy, or the donkey is quite small. So not all donkeys are small, as I said, but those in the miniature, they seem to be very tiny. I don't know if there was any research on the size of medieval donkeys, on the varieties of medieval donkeys, but given the fact that horses were quite small, I would imagine donkeys was also very small, and mules, not quite big. Not, you can think. How did they travel all the way into Egypt? Poor donkey. Um, hopefully, hopefully they took good care of these animals. Also, donkeys appear in the accounts of pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land. For example, Marjorie Kemp, she's got some details on about the way she was riding on the back of a donkey. I think she even noted how much she had to pay for it. So sometimes pilgrims noted also the amount they had to pay for hiring a donkey. Again, you might think that some of these pilgrims could have been quite heavy. These donkeys were small. So in addition to research into horse history, I think there is good cause to do some research into donkey history and the way these animals were managed. And as I'm copying, I'm noticing that I have a feeling, need to check, but I think the donkeys with the low head carriage has shoes on its feet. Um, so that's not something I've noticed before. Another good reason to copy these miniatures, you notice things which otherwise you don't notice. Yeah, let's see if anything good happened. Hmm? Okay, I think I forgot some of the outlines. Edit. Here we go. Ah, okay. Yeah. Well, I have to do with what I have. So any details which I didn't copy well, or I forgot to copy, you can add in pencil. I know it doesn't really show well on my video. You can add in pencil any details. Um, and then you can choose your colors and color in. Yeah, there is. So this image has kind of some uh, line in the middle. So it's letter E, obviously. So horizontal line. Maybe it's not letter E. Okay. And I also forgot one leg of the donkey. Nice. For donkey. Okay. So now that I have done the basics, I guess I'll use this one for coloring because it's more visible on the video, for one thing. Also, I think I need more work on the other image. And today I'm using watercolors. I'll need to mix them. So Miriam, are you drawing as well or not? Just
I'm
checking.
not at the moment, but I'm going to. Yeah, I'm going to have a go. I
Okay.
really enjoyed that. And I've got some new gel pens that I'm thinking of using for the one's a gold one. I think it'd be quite nice for the gold. But at the moment, I'm just watching. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Um, yeah, so I'm going to use watercolors this time. I wanted to boast that my husband has got me very nice ink from Temu. Haven't tried it yet.
Oh, very
But
nice.
yeah, I think it would, you can use ink just as well. Just because I didn't have the time to try it out. I don't want to experiment and find that I don't know what to do with it. Um, but yeah, I think ink works quite well. Um, so um, um, I don't know why, but it seems like in winter, everything is taking so much time with the real horses and all the other animals. They like making our lives difficult, I guess.
It
Um,
is like a full-time job, isn't it? It's you start in the morning and you're still there. My last hay nets go out on the yard about 10 o'clock at night. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So this year we started feeding the horses with hay bales because otherwise it's too much work. But don't feed the ponies with hay bales because otherwise they will be very, very fat, and I don't want to keep them with the horses. Just, means that I have to feed them 3 times a day. And I haven't figured out what to do with the goats because if I leave them indoors, they're quite noisy. They don't like it. Letting them go out. They don't. They have no respect of electric fencing. So they would be just everywhere, run all around the place. Um, yeah, and getting into horses' feed. That could be another interesting topic for research. What did people do with goats in the Middle Ages? Because there were goats. Something I would like to do when I have a bit more time. Um, how goats were managed, if they could be managed. Um, I'm not quite sure. Okay. Um, so I'll be painting oops, the Virgin's clothes, right? And in this image, I think there could have been some gold leaf on the top, but don't have gold leaf and I don't have anything which looks like gold leaf, so I'm just going to use yellow color. That's fine. Should be fine. Um, um, yeah. Okay. Yeah, but one thing people don't really realize about the Middle Ages is that Christmas wasn't such a big celebration. It wasn't celebrated quite the same way that we do today. Um, if you look at Arthurian romance, most of the important things they usually happen at Christian holidays, but it's not always Christmas. You've got uh, Easter, you've got other days. I think Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is the only one where they have uh, Christmas described. Um, of course, the most important Christian feast is Easter. I don't know how it's in other parts of the world, but here it's so commercialized this year. I have kind of Christmas overload. Um, too much of things which are happening. Um, and I'm kind of not not feeling not kind of embracing this kind of commercial Christmas. I want to be a bit quieter. Like Halloween. Actually, that's another holiday which became so heavily commercialized. Doesn't make much sense to me. Um, it's also not part of the local culture. There are festivals of the dead around the same time of the year, but it's very different. Doesn't have pumpkins either. Um, so nice to do something different for a change. Non-commercial. Um, here we go. And other things. And today we are always giving and getting presents for Christmas. And I'm not quite sure about the like medieval Europe and Catholic tradition, but I don't know that in the Orthodox Church they usually weren't giving presents exactly at Christmas time, but on the day of Saint Nicholas. That's why you have Santa Claus, and I think it's everywhere as well. Like not always Christmas. Now kids were pestering me for presents, and I say, okay, did you know that you can also get coal in your socks? No one was expecting that. Said, maybe you get coal if you don't behave yourselves. And they didn't believe me. That's not something they usually they are told at school these days. They expect chocolates all the time. Um, okay, here we go. So here we got Joseph dressed in orange. So orange was quite a popular color in the Middle Ages. Um, Back in those days when I wasn't a historian yet, like uh, doing my second year of my BA in English philology, I was LARPing, and there was one game which was like based on sort of history. It was called the Silver Arrows of Robin Hood, and somebody was asking me if if orange as a color could have been used in the Middle Ages, and said probably yes. And then I looked at manuscripts, and I found loads of images of orange, and I even had a blog about how orange was the Middle Ages. They were quite orange, very bright. And today we often think of the Middle Ages as kind of gray, dark, dirty. If you've read Bernard Cornwell's novels about you know, Dark Age King Arthur, everything is dark and dirty. Um, but really, Middle Ages were so colorful. It's like it's only the fact that didn't survive this way. Also, we can see in miniatures that a lot of colors have changed. So we don't really know what they looked like back then. Um, but definitely they were more colorful than we think now. People weren't afraid of um, using bright colors. Um, so the Virgin's dress, canonically it's either blue or it could be red, or it could be blue and red. And I think here I'm not quite sure what color it is, but I'm quite sure it should have been some uh, um, kind of blue, and it just changed with time. Um, so she's got an overgarment of red and pinkish red, and then underneath there is something blue, and the baby is wrapped in something which is blue as well. Um, and she's sitting on something like again a sideways saddle or a pack saddle. There is a saddle cloth underneath. Okay, not quite sure what color it is. Um, but it's there. Um, let's go for something like purple. there is this kind of bush or whatever, shrubbery, which is very typical for the miniatures of this period. They all have this kind of green shrubbery. Um, I think it's supposed to be a tree. Um, Here we go, green. Um, so they're obviously traveling through the wilderness, through uninhabited lands, and it's kind of vegetation. Um, it's also shown quite often in romances when the knights are traveling through the forests. Of course, the forest is this uninhabited land, which is a bit dangerous, a bit like the other world. Um, the forest of adventures. So here again, the fact that it's got this tree and the bird sitting in the tree, we get the idea that their journey is perilous. It's taking place somewhere away from civilization. Um, I don't know if there are such there is this vegetation on the way to Egypt, but for European readers and viewers, it conveys this idea of journey through the wilderness. Um, cool. Um, and there is this bird. Again, I'm not sure what kind of bird it is. It's kind of brownish bird. Um, but could go well with the idea that this is uninhabited land, wild land, but also birds in medieval cultures, they could have positive connotation like bird song and everything. Um, okay, so now let's move on to Joseph. Um, got his overcoat, extra clothing, which is carrying. The wise man he is, of course, he needs to take care of his family. So, overcoat is sensible brown color. Bonus paterfamilias doesn't go for gaudy colors. Um, um, Here we go.
That overcoat has been quite a feature in a number of these images, hasn't it? And I've never ever noticed it before. This is, but I'm talking to Anastasia. Yeah.
Yes,
Jeff's
yes,
just
I
chimed in. What
noticed that
overcoat?
too. As I was looking at it, and it's like, okay, so they're traveling with a change of clothes. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fascinating.
yeah, and I also never noticed it before. Um, and he's got here in this miniature, he's got this small sash. Look, other stuff is there. Um, Only thing it got a handle and it's round. Um, but it's extra clothing or what? I'm not quite sure. Um, yeah, but he's always got this extra clothes, and it's definitely his extra clothes, not the virgin's, judging by the color, solid masculine color. Um, so it was their flight into Egypt wasn't this unprepared. Must have had time to take their belongings before they flee. Um, so carrying it over here. Um, all right. So I'm going to paint the Virgin's kind of undergarment, or she's got this pink thing over circle overcoat, and underneath is something else. And my guess it should have been blue, even though it doesn't look very blue now. So I wanted blue. Um, it's because the Virgin is always wearing blue in other tradition, and I'm not an expert on dyes, but I think blue is the color which can be oxidized, so could change depending on the conditions in which the manuscript was stored. Um, and the other color, I'm fascinated by its sometimes in medieval manuscripts of this period, you see horses which are pink. I'm quite sure they didn't want to paint these horses pink because I have never seen a pink horse before. And I have no reason to think people were so pink horses or were more stupid than we are today. So one possibility is they were depicting some kind of dun horse, but I'm also thinking that whatever they painted, the color must have changed in some way. So they ended up with a pink horse, but wasn't pink originally. We ended up with a pink horse. Um, and then today, a lot of people, especially those who are not historians, saying, "Oh, these people are so dumb; they didn't know what horses looked like. They thought they were pink." No, probably they knew what horses looked like. They probably didn't paint pink horses. Just we don't know what exactly they painted. Um, so I'm painting this initial E. Um, and yeah, I'm just thinking so much care goes into these historiated miniatures, which are so small. Um, get an entire message before you read uh, your chapter. You already know what you're going to read about. Uh, you have some commentary going on um, with your reading. Um, um, hold on. So you're not going to waste your time reading something you didn't want to read. Kind of. Um, I'm just wondering why they depicted the same thing twice on the same folio and the donkey which looks a little bit different. Um, why you want to do it two times and not just once? Apart from the fact it's obviously very important. Um, so, um, I don't think I will be able to finish because it's got this on this letter E, they have a sort of white overlay and we'll be able to do it only when it's dry. And I'll probably need some pen, some gel pen to do it. Um, something white. Good. Later on, but it's quite colorful already as it is. I think it's quite Christmassy. It's got enough red on it to be Christmassy. Um, and green. You can think of this as a Christmas tree, actually, and a Christmas tree with a bird. Um, okay, now I'm painting Joseph's black stockings or boots. Hope it's black. Mm. Okay. So when I was looking for these miniatures, I was hoping kind of there will be more saddles present, but I think they were mostly going for pack saddles with this type of illumination. Which actually makes sense that because they're not using ladies saddles, they're using pack saddles, or it's covered by the Virgin's clothes. Um, Maybe I will discover more sideways saddles later on, but haven't been able to identify them yet. Okay. So now I'm going to paint the background in blue, and then we'll be more or less finished. We will need to write Merry Christmas underneath. Um, Here we go. So again, this kind of blue background, it's got some sort of um, design on it, like wallpaper. Um, so there is this white design like a web, um, very minute with uh, which I will only be able to add later on when it dries. Um, but again, it's makes you think how much time people would spend on these miniatures, which are so tiny, and you realize that it's a lot of time, a lot of money, um, and then ultimately you see why you don't have more miniatures, don't have miniatures for every scene you want to see. Um, and of course, if those things which do get miniatures, they are significant in some way. And if something gets depleted twice, then it's doubly significant, I guess. Uh, so here we go. Um, um, And yeah, so this is a relatively easy one to draw. And as you go into the late Middle Ages, they're getting more and more sophisticated. Um, but then you can choose a detail which you want to reproduce. Don't need to reproduce the whole thing. Mm. Or you can even choose something from the marginale. Um, and go for it. Here we are. Nearly there. And go. Okay. So it's also interesting when they choose to represent the equipment which is not elite equipment, like, and you have these details of halters and bridles which are quite simple rather than these high status curb bridles, which you see basically everywhere, kind of ubiquitous. And then you see this very small, simple rope halters, and you think, okay, that's what people would have been using mostly at this time, um, for working animals. Um, but I don't think that outside of Southern Europe they would have seen that many donkeys, which could explain why eventually they um, don't know exactly how to draw donkeys. So here I forgot the hoof. Um, and some donkeys don't look like donkeys at all and look more like horses. The basic differentiator is, of course, that the donkey is carrying its head low, um, and horses are carrying their heads high in miniatures because they're proud animals most of the time. So when you see a donkey doing something like the way horses usually do, okay, this donkey is almost like a horse. It's cosplaying a horse. Um, okay, here we go. But of course, in the Bible, you would mostly get donkeys. Um, in early modern Rus, there was a tradition associated not with the Nativity but with Palm Sunday, where they have a procession um, with, I think, the patriarch or the metropolitan entering the city on the back of what's supposed to be a donkey, but this was usually a horse, which was representing a donkey. So that's the other way around. There are even some classical paintings showing it. Um, here we go. Uh, oh, there is one more place where I haven't. Mhm. Okay, so here we go. Now it's all painted. Um, and we can go for wrapping up and writing something. Okay. Um, so what I need a pen. Um, so before I write, I wanted to ask any ideas what we want next year into illumination, if you want illumination. Any ideas what we could be doing? Oh, I see there is something in the chat. Sorry, I can see everywhere. Okay. Um, yes, so no, I haven't heard about any studies of donkey remains. And this book introducing the medievalists um, doesn't have much in terms of archaeological evidence. Um, um, okay, so the question is open if people have any ideas of what they want to do in terms of discussion, in terms of drawing something, or basically anything they want to do. Um, it's open. We will upload this video to YouTube, so um, we will be able to comment what they want to do. Um, I should have been practicing before. Um, okay. And yes, if there are suggestions what people want to see, it's also welcome to suggest topics or suggest speakers. You can invite speakers um, if there are anyone whom you want to see. Now I'm going to write in Cyrillic. This is not a Cyrillic manuscript, but I'm using Cyrillic script. But I am going to write Merry Christmas. Um, 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 and then we can finish. And if you have other manuscripts of the Nativity which you found, you can drop me a word. Um, post links, post images. That's a very weird pen. Um, and yeah, so open to discussion. We can discuss oxen next time and why there is oxen. Or sheep. Sheep are also nice. The shepherds joining. Or the king's horses, which are a bit out of place, but they appear also in sculpture quite a lot, especially in Romanesque sculpture. You have the three kings coming with their magnificent horses. So this is another topic we can discuss and look at the tech of these horses. Um, So a lot of topics you can do around this Christmas time. Or we can do something entirely different. For example, discussing Sir Gawain and the Green Knight and the horses. Um, mm, mhm. Um, so just two more letters to go. And goes Веселого Рождества. So the analogy of Merry Christmas. And exclamation point. Aha. I did it. Okay. So oops. Another camera went down. Okay, but I'm here, not heard. Just um, I'll just switch to a different camera. And that's the image. Come. Okay, thank you, Francis. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Alexa. Thank you, Miriam. Um, I'm looking forward to hearing more from you. Any ideas? You're welcome. Hope you have a very Merry Christmas. Great time in Peru, in Scotland, in Greece, wherever you are. Second, I'll stop the recording.